Time to help you with those mortgages. This is part two of the conversation that we would have started last week, but the focus this time around is on those application requirements. Of course, Crystal Howell, our internal auditor, is here to help you go through the process. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. I know you love to start with your review of, just a quick review of what we went through last week, remortgages, and then get into the application process.
So we would have had an entire series on loans, but mortgages tend to be a bit different because they have so many additional requirements and the length of time that you have for mortgage. You really want to make sure you take everything that you have to do under consideration, give it some thought, and make sure that you're not signing away very quickly a decision that is going to take you another 25 to 30 years to pay off. Because I know a lot of persons, they don't get the full magnitude of what they're signing on to, but you're going to go into this for a very long time. So we want to make sure people are aware of what they're signing their names to, what they're getting into, not to discourage, but to make sure people are prepared. And we would have started the conversation last week, and now we're going to go into some more details as to when you're filling out those application forms, what you should be looking for. So we discussed the interest rates and the terms and everything else, but now we're going into the details, because a lot of the times people don't realize everything they may need. They go and they look for their dream home, they have it in their hearts and their minds, and then they hear that they qualify and everything is a go. But then you don't realize that you have all of these additional things that you need to think about, and then you start to feel overwhelmed, but you've already signed the contract, you've already received the money, you may have already even spent the money.
So we're helping you to avoid that. Don't sign that contract just yet. What are those key things you need to know, that you must know in this application process in terms of those requirements?
Well, some of the requirements are quite easy. So if they ask you for your 2 forms of ID and your proof of address, usually a fixed utility bill, they're doing that because they're trying to understand who you are as a person. There are lots of legislative requirements, anti-money laundering laws that require these, and persons like me in the internal audit field will come down very hard on these organizations if they do not have them in place.
Right.
So don't fight the persons when they ask you for these things. If they've asked
They're not being too inquisitive.
they're not being too inquisitive. If you gave them some proof of address 3 months ago and they ask you for it again, that's because usually they want something that's within the last 3 months, so they're not being facetious.
Just checks and balances.
Just checks and balances. They want to make sure that you live where you say you live, you haven't moved. They're going to ask you for your proof of income. So if you say that you make $8,000 a month, they're going to want to know that you really do make this money, so they're going to probably ask you for pay slips.
Okay. We just had a little part of a application form on the screen.
Yes.
Speaking to co-applicant. What was that?
The co-applicant is if they're going to be applying for this mortgage with someone else. And those requirements are not going to just be for you. Your co-applicant is also going to have to provide these as well.
And this is normally like your spouse.
Normally your
significant other.
spouse, but you don't have to go with a spouse if you want to go with your best friend.
Yeah?
You can go right ahead as long as you have. I see you looking at me funny. You don't
No,
know.
it's just don't forget my generation. We were told, about friends and neither a borrower nor a lender be, that sort of thing.
Yes.
So, yeah, I'm just, because friendships can
They
change.
can.
You can lose friendships
can.
due to when money is involved, especially when it's big money like that. I saw there was a long list there too, A to like M.
Yes, that's why I said it's good for persons to look at these things before they start getting very excited. So on that list includes getting a quantity surveyors report. You have to make sure you have the land documents. So if you and this friend trust each other so much that you've decided that you're going to build a house together, and it could be something where you're living separately. It doesn't have to necessarily be something where you're living together, but at least sharing that property, sharing a lot of those expenses, sharing legal fees, and you decide, because things are very different now. Many people aren't able to afford a home by themselves. I see you all. This is a lot to think about.
It is.
The A to M part, I'm still at
There's
that.
still other
Because I
pages.
was counting the alphabet and thinking to myself, my goodness.
Yes.
There's several pages.
There are several pages.
You need to go through this with someone, though, I think, not necessarily the loans officer or whatever from the institution, but perhaps someone like an accountant or a lawyer or someone who can you trust.
A lawyer is the best person to discuss these with, and many times the financial institution will ask you if you want to have your own lawyer or if you would like to share the lawyer with them. Sharing the lawyer brings down the fees. However, if you share the lawyer, know the lawyer is on the financial institution's side.
Right.
Unless you plan to be a bad debt, which no one plans to be, you should be relatively safe choosing this option, but you have to bear that risk in mind. With everything, there's pros and cons. So you just weigh them and decide which one is best for you.
Well, I expect mortgage conversation part 3 next Monday. Of course, Crystal Howell is helping you know how best to get that best mortgage so you can plan your future. It's all about determining your best future financially. Yeah, the finances got to be right. Crystal, always a pleasure. You have great information. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us
You're
this
welcome.
morning. Look out for mortgage part 3 next Monday.